In this video, I would like to talk about reasons why not to join the new Kadampa tradition if you are interested in Buddhism, the NKT. I'm going to cite 10 reasons and 10 facts why I think it's a bad idea to join this organization. So the first reason is that the new Kadampa tradition, and this is not in order of importance at all, but the new Kadampa tradition is not acknowledged by any other mainstream Buddhist organization or leader. It is outside traditional Tibetan Buddhism and has been designated as a new religious movement. The organization is also on a lot of cult watch lists. So if you Google New Kadampa Tradition cults or cults watch lists, you will find this organization on these lists. The second reason is that the NKT was founded by a Tibetan monk by the name of Kelsang Gyatso, who called himself Geshe. He is not a Geshe. A Geshe is a Tibetan title conferred upon an individual who completes a certain number of years of very high level Dharma study and then passes a Geshe exam and then becomes a Geshe. It's a bit similar to a PhD in Western cultures. So Kelsang Gyatso never actually sat his Geshe exam. He never became a Geshe. And so to call him Geshe is already a lie, actually. So yeah, he was expelled from his own monastery in India. And when he came to Europe, into the UK in the 1970s, he founded his own sort of breakaway tradition, which he called modern Buddhism. The third reason why I don't think it's a good idea to join the New Kadampa tradition is that there are very serious safeguarding issues regarding this group. Many former members of the NKT allege serious psychological, emotional, and financial harm resulting from their involvement with this group. There are alternate support groups for ex-members of the NKT. There are hundreds of members in these groups. Or the new Kadampa tradition systematically and systemically uses manipulation techniques to attract, recruit, and hook members to their organizations. These techniques include, for example, love bombing in the initial phase of the recruitment process. I have made a video about love bombing in the NKT. I'm going to include a link in the notes. And so basically love bombing means flooding the new member with affection, flattery, and validation, faking mutual interest, faking agreement with the new member no matter what they say, offering comfort if they are in a difficult life situation, and so on and so forth. The second technique is the isolation technique. It's the next phase where the member is encouraged to spend more and more time with the organization, to go to various events, retreats, festivals, and also in this phase there are certain brainwashing techniques applied to the members to increase their self-importance, implying that they are, for example, that they are fortunate to be a part of the NKT, to have found this only pure tradition of Buddhism, to have found a guru who is none other than the living Buddha himself. Now that Kelsang Gyatso has died, they still use this expression living Buddha, but they also use the idea of Buddha, like he is the Buddha. It's often difficult to understand in the NKT when they use the word Buddha, whether they refer to the actual Buddha Shakyamuni or they are referring to Kelsang Gyatso, because they use the word interchangeably. There's this other idea in the isolation phase where the members are told that there is an important job to do, for them to do, to carry out, to help each and every living being to enlightenment. This is a job that is important, that we need to do, that is very, very meaningful, and that there is absolutely nothing more meaningful than this job. Not your family, not your career, not your studies, not your friends. This is the most important thing. that you should dedicate your life to. And then in this phase also, they try to entrust the new member or the member initially with small but very important jobs in the center, which then these little jobs become, they grow in number, they become more important and more demanding, requiring more commitment. So it's like a process where the member gets more and more involved, step by step, gradually more and more involved with the NKT and less involved with their lives on the outside. Sort of. There's also this idea that whatever is outside the NKT is degenerate. We are living in degenerate times. Samsara sucks. It's absolutely horrible. The worldly experience is something to completely denigrate, and it's disgusting. It's a constant. So it has a very strong effect, I think, on a lot of people in the organization. There is also in this phase a lot of censoring that goes on in the NKT. Members' posts are kind of censored in the various NKT forums. Posts are deleted or comments are deleted that do not conform. Eventually also members can be banned from various forums if they on some idea that does not conform to the NKT mainstream dogma, so to speak. I have heard of an NKT member who was actually expelled from his center for a post, something that he posted on Facebook, not even on an NKT forum, but somewhere else on Facebook, and he was expelled from his Sangha for that. So people are scared of that, so eventually they learn to censor themselves. I remember when I was involved in the NKT, my posts were closely watched by my resident, my teacher and my friend, and he would write to me if I posted something that was not okay according to the NKT standards. Sometimes he was told by another NKT member who I was friends with to tell me to delete some kind of post that I put up. So that was a bit weird. That was a bit scary. And eventually I kind of learned to censor myself, ask myself, is this okay to say? Is this okay to post? Is this, they call it qualified in the NKT. This is not a qualified post. This is not a skillful, that's another word that they use. This is not a skillful post, or this is not a skillful thing to say. And this vocabulary, that they use in the NKT is part of the brainwashing technique and also the isolation technique. So we are fortunate, we are rejoicing, this is skilled, this is unskilled, this is qualified, this is unqualified, degenerate times, and so on and so forth. It's just the list is endless. So the next phase of the isolation process is keeping controlling the membership to make sure that the members hang on to the organization. And similarly to other cults, they use a variety of techniques that usually involve subjecting the cult recruit to terror and love, fear, and promises. So fear is a very big part of the NKT experience, in my experience, and also according to a lot of ex-members. So what happens is that when we're frightened, we don't simply run away from the fear, but we are looking for a safe place to run to. We run to a safe haven, to someone who can protect us, and that someone is someone that we have bonded with. And obviously in this case it's going to be the NKT itself, because the member has bonded with the NKT during the love bombing and isolation phases. So even though the NKT is the source, or the organization is the source of the fear, the member feels that they need to stay within the organization to escape from that fear. Just that frightened person to freeze and to feel trapped between approach and avoidance. And this keeps the cult member totally off balance. They never know what's coming. And this situation where the cult member feels off balance increases the dependency of the cult member on the cult itself. So ensures that the group retains control. And this is very much used in the NKT. The frozen state of terror and avoidance overwhelms cult members and compromises their ability to think critically about the ideology they've committed themselves to. And this actually brings us to Dorje Shugden, which is our fifth reason why not to join the NKT. Dorje Shugden is the personage that the NKT uses to install and maintain both the fear and the promises of enlightenment, merit, purification, good karma in the members. When a member takes a Dorje Shugden empowerment, they might very well feel that their spiritual life is intrinsically connected now to the practice and veneration of Dorje Shugden, who has both the power and to punish and confer merit. So praying to Dorje Shugden can also help the member realize various, even worldly desires, such as getting a better job or a relationship, according to a lot of members of the NKT that I see in the various NKT forums. So the new Kadampa tradition worships the spirit, Dorje Shugden, whom they consider to be a Buddha. And decades ago, the Dalai Lama advised his followers to stop worshipping this spirit in order to avoid Buddhism degenerating into mere spirit worship. He also warned that this spirit was closely associated with dangerous sectarianism. So instead of simply disagreeing with the Dalai Lama, the Kadampa tradition engaged for many decades, for at least 2 decades, in a hate campaign to vilify and denigrate the Dalai Lama. So this brings us to the 6th reason why not to join a group that has accumulated this kind of karma, that has created schism within the Buddhist community. So the NKT in those days, they published slanderous articles, booklets, pamphlets, memes online and on paper, proclaiming extreme ideas about the Dalai Lama. And so I have read some of this material. It's very, very sad. That was one of the eye-openers for me when I found this stuff on the internet, and I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what have I done? And that was literally an eye-opener. NKT members and many of the leading Gyanlas today, teachers today, also followed the Dalai Lama, stalked the Dalai Lama. They followed him from venue to venue during his teaching tours, and they stood outside, created a deafening noise so that the Dalai Lama couldn't give his teachings. This is one of the biggest sins in Buddhism, preventing Buddhists from receiving the Dharma. This is something that accumulates a lot of bad karma, and it's a kind of karma that's difficult to purify then. So this went on for many years, and now they stopped a few years ago, but this is part of NKT history, which I personally don't think they will ever live down. The 7th reason why not to join the new Kadampa tradition concerns the ordination process. The nuns and monks who represent the NKT do not take any of the traditional accepted vows, nor do they receive the many years of traditional training required in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. It is very simple to become a monk or a nun in the NKT. You simply indicate your wish to your resident teacher, resident monk or nun, and make the application, pay the fees, which are sizable, pay for the travel, the trip to Manjushri, pay for the robes, pay for everything, and then you get ordained. And now you have these robes and you look like someone who is very, very super spiritual and has some kind of spiritual realizations or something. But maybe a year ago you were just, you didn't even know what Buddhism even was. So in a normal Buddhist organization, the ordained members follow the Vinaya. The Vinaya is often the word, it's part of the Dharma Pada, the Buddhist basic teachings, and it's often translated as discipline. We often talk about Dharma Vinaya, which because the Vinaya is very intrinsically connected to the Dharma itself. So this is the doctrine and discipline, and the Buddha used this term to refer to his complete teaching, suggesting its integral role in Buddhist practice. So there is no Vinaya at all in the New Kadampa tradition. Vinaya involves 253 vows that the monks and nuns take, but in the NKT there are only 10 vows that the ordained person has to take, and these more or less correspond the 10 lay pratimoksha vows that the Buddha had for lay practitioners. So basically, in the NKT there's not much difference actually between lay practitioners and the ordained practitioners, or the monks and the nuns. So the next reason why not, and this is number 8, why not to join the NKT is the quality of the teachings. Most Buddhist traditions require years of training, sometimes as many as 20 years to qualify as a teacher. The NKT recruit lay people and have them teaching often within as little as 6 months. There is a formal teacher training in the NKT, but many people teach without this formal training, where, when I was part of the NKT, I literally knew at least a dozen people who got on the Gompa and taught without this formal training. Many of them very young people, so it was actually weird that I was in my 40s and these guys were like 19, and they were sitting there and giving out teaching. So that was kind of a weird experience, and one that made me feel like, whatever. But the point is that the teachers basically just required to read Khalsa Gyatso's books and memorize the passages that they're going to teach. And they are also required to have the book in their hands, refer to the book, sometimes read from the book directly, and that's it, that's the teaching. So the issue here, so they're not allowed to veer away from the original text. They're not allowed to bring in examples from even from Jason Kappa himself, on whom the tradition is based. They're not allowed to bring in other sources at all. Only and singularly, Khalsa Gyatso's books are allowed for the teacher to teach. So the issue here then is often a profound lack of understanding of basic Buddhist concepts. I remember one of the teachers in my center, they didn't even know what the Four Noble Truths were. I mean, just very basic lack of understanding. And there is also a profound lack of integration of the teachings into everyday life. For example, the teachers required to bring specific examples to demonstrate the specific teachings, like the teachings of emptiness. You have to bring a specific example that Khalsa Gyatso gives you. You cannot bring an example from your own life. You cannot share your own understanding of that teaching. And also the students are kind of discouraged to very much share their own experience of these concepts. So there is a very there is no real experience of the Dharma, it seems to me, or at least it's discouraged to be included in the teaching. So this is one thing that I find problematic in the NKT. So it's the lack of qualified teachers and teachers who have a bit wider knowledge, not just Khalsa Gyatso's books. And that kind of brings us to our next problem. Problem number 9 is that the NKT often claims to be a pure tradition of a 14th century Tibetan Buddhist master, Tsongkhapa. However, they don't teach any of Tsongkhapa's major texts, aside from a few short texts translated by their own translators. Students at the NKT only study from their one teacher, Khalsa Gyatso. The books of Khalsa Gyatso himself continually undergo editing and changes. The students are continually encouraged to buy the new editions of these books, and often these new editions are simplified versions of the original books, which were already pretty much watered down Dharma to begin with. So often, unfortunately, these new books are even more simplistic and schematic. So yeah, so these books continually undergo editing and changes, further simplifying and reducing an already pretty much watered down Dharma. And what is even more alarming is that in some cases there are subtle distortions to the Dharma itself to serve the objectives of the organization rather than the purity of the Dharma. The last reason why I don't think it's a good idea to join the New Kadampa tradition is that the New Kadampa tradition have stated many times their intentions to spread throughout the world. And they invest a lot of money and time into propagating their tradition, also known as proselytizing. Now, this goes against the Buddha's advice to his followers, which was to not do this, to not proselytize, not to give teachings unless asked for, and asked for 3 times. So this was important for the Buddha, I think, exactly because he felt that his teachings might become just simple, merchandise. And so when the Dalai Lama, for example, is teaching in Western or non-Buddhist societies, he often advises students that it is actually safer to keep their own traditional religions, but advises to observe some Buddhist approaches that might be helpful to their own religious practice. So the unsuspecting individual who joins the NKT with the idea of learning to meditate, staying on the Buddhist path, might very well find themselves in the position of just creating the causes and conditions of building more New Kadampa world peace temples and world peace cafes around the world, and thereby increasing the organization's financial clout rather than making progress on any sort of path. So what I see a very big problem with the NKT, that it is so intrinsically connected with financial gains, with making money. It works as a franchising operation. Each center is somehow independent as sort of a McDonald's restaurant. In fact, the NKT has been referred to as the McDonald's of Buddhism. So I'm always saying, there are so many great teachers out there. There are so many great traditions out there. You may not have access to a real center, to a real Sangha, because you live in a place where you don't have that. But there is a lot of resources online. You can really study for free or for very, very little money. You can have systematic study programs in all the different traditions of Buddhism. Why give your money to the NKT? Basically, what I think that these may be the 10 most important reasons. Please comment if you think there are other reasons why we might discourage someone from joining the New Kadampa tradition. This is all from me for now, and thank you very much for watching, and please like the video if you have liked the video, put a like to it, and subscribe to the channel if you are interested. Thank you.